everyone, Adam here, So Is Your Podcast. I have a really cool one for you today. It's an interview with the writer-director Christopher Soren Kelly. He has a new movie coming out, or that came out, called The Tangle. I was really trying to rush to get this interview out. Anyway, The Tangle is a very cool sci-fi movie. It came out March 19th, so sorry this video is a little bit late, but it's an awesome movie. You should definitely check it out. And our conversation's really cool because we do, of course, talk about the movie, but we also talk into kind of the process leading up to it and how Christopher got there, his style on writing, the way he did the dialogues. The dialogue has this kind of unique, snappy tempo to it. Really, I love the movie. I don't know why I'm blathering on because you have an interview to get to, so enjoy. Hey everyone, Adam here, So Is Your Podcast. I'm sitting down with Christopher Soren Kelly to talk about his new movie, The Tangle. How you doing, Chris?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
Before we get to The Tangle, I always like to ask creative people, what was your spark? Like, if to go all the way back to the beginning, when did you know you wanted to get into film?
I guess what I would say is I always knew I wanted to be in the arts, and I don't. I'm a writer as well, and an actor, and so a filmmaker, and so I always knew. I was making little videos on the VCR, VHS tapes when I was, with my family and with my cousin. When I was a kid, I was writing science fiction stories when I was 10. So pretty early on, I knew I just wanted to be creative person. I get excited about anyone doing anything. So I see somebody like writing a story or making a movie or singing a song, and I want to learn how to do it. And so pretty early on, I wanted to be involved in creating stuff. Yeah.
Nice. Did you know from a young age that it was like a career goal, or did you not really separate the two?
Yeah, I guess I never really thought in terms of careers. I had a very artsy family, so we weren't very career oriented. I went to grad school for. I went to at undergrad. I studied physics and philosophy, and then I went to grad school for philosophy, and I was a professor for a while. So that was sort of a career. But even when I was doing it, it never felt like a career, right? So I always knew I was still writing and creating things even at that time.
That sounds a lot more freeing than being locked into a job you can't stand and wishing you were doing the creative stuff.
Yeah, like I always say that I think both, it's grass is always greener, right? So, when you're in this life, it's a little bit uncertain and there's a kind of anxiety because you don't know exactly where you're going to make your money or, what's happening next, but there's also an excitement and an adventure and a creativity. So, there's pros and cons.
That's a good point. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if you always knew you want to do a creative thing, what led you into philosophy?
Well, I was just interested. I was always, so this is separate, but I was always interested in like the deepest, what I thought were the deepest questions, like why are we here? Like, what is this universe about? And so that's why I studied physics and studied philosophy. And I was always just really excited about those questions, and so would read the kind of material that would try to answer those questions. And so that led me, to doing a lot of philosophy. Yeah. I might have gone to grad school in physics if things had gone a little bit different. I was interested in both of those quite a bit.
So they're two pretty heavy endeavors too. Like, I'm curious, I'll attack that.
Yeah, it was really purely curiosity. That's why I never really thought of it as a career. Even when I was teaching, it was like, well, I'm doing this because I'm interested,
Yeah. Did you find that, I mean, I imagine you did, studying something like philosophy would translate really well into you as a writer?
I don't know. It's inevitable that it will. I don't know if I guess I'll leave that to other people to judge whether it translates well. But like the Tangle is a little bit can be challenging because it's both philosophical and linguistically challenging. And so for some people that's going to be super exciting, and for some people it's going to be like, I wish he was a little less philosophical. So I think I definitely adds to my unique voice as an artist. I think.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because I mean, everyone has, their perspective and their voice. So I guess for a deeper understanding.
Yeah, that's right. And not everybody has a PhD in philosophy who's making movies. So it gives its unique flavor to what I do, I think.
Definitely. So from a philosophy professor, was it kind of a like a flip the switch to get into the creative arts, or were you also writing and maybe doing some shorts or something on the side?
Yeah, I was always so when I started grad school, I wrote a novel, which I never published, but I was doing that, and then I started acting and was in some movies, and actually made a film that never saw the light of day, like learning how to do it, even while I was in grad school for philosophy. So, and then I taught for a few years, and one of my former directors, Jamin Winans. So some people may know of the film Inc., which has a kind of cult following in the sci-fi, low-budget sci-fi world. He had written a role for me, and I was like, okay, this is a good opportunity to switch gears, because it was a big role, and it was like 3 months of shooting. So I just decided, okay, I'll go do that.
And that was simultaneous with grad school?
Oh no, I'd already been teaching philosophy for a little while at that
Oh,
point.
okay. Sorry, I missed the. I was going to
But
say
while
that's a
going to
full
grad
plate.
school, I was doing movies and things, including made my own movie.
Yeah.
But but then and that like groundwork led to, well, Jamin had known me from a couple movies we'd made before. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I think I just missed the connection.
Yeah, I was making a mess of it a little bit.
No, no, it's fine. It just sounds like a lot to take on grad school, and then even working as a professor and being in a movie for 3 months that's long days.
Yeah, well, that at that point I quit, so that I wasn't doing the professor thing after I decided to do that movie. Yeah, that started
Okay.
over the summer, and then I just didn't keep.
Didn't go back. Yeah. Was that your first step into making the creative thing more of your? I hate to keep using the word because it doesn't seem like it fits your
But that
lexicon
was
so
the
much.
big
But
that was the
career.
big and that was the big transition to, yeah, I had been sort of steadily in the academic stuff until then, and then I stopped. Yep.
Okay. So you started off as an actor professionally then.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And you were still writing, I would guess, on the side. Like that probably never goes away.
Yeah, like I said, even when I was acting, I would always be like learning from the directors I was working with, and always going, oh, I could do this. And as I said, I made a feature of my own that was a bit of a failure in terms of getting it all. It's really hard to make a feature, but it was it was a good film school for me to actually try and make a low budget feature before.
I've heard that is kind of a recurring thing where people didn't get the formal film school training or didn't go to like an accredited film school, whatever. Um, but they made something even if it never came out, and like that was a better boot camp than I ever could have gotten, paying for it. Well, I mean, I guess you paid for it, but
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the way I went, and I've heard that a number of times as well. So that's something I would say. Of course, I didn't go the other way, so I can't say what I missed. But
Mhm.
my experience is you just can't learn very much unless you're actually out there doing it. So there's just, and I was so fortunate to be as an actor. It's grueling, but I was on all these smaller sets with some really good directors, by the way, and Jamin Winans is one of them, and that where it was a small enough situation that I could be really involved as an actor in talking about the story and talking about how technically things are getting done and learning all the aspects of the thing. At this point, I've done everything on a set. I've done everything on a set at this point. And so that's useful. I would rather do less at this point, but it's useful when I know what the person I'm working with, what they are doing. I can talk to them better. So that's been an invaluable education.
That makes a lot of sense too. It's the manager who started on the ground floor. You got to work your way up, and you know how every cog works in the machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as your writing goes, did you find that to be kind of the same process where you can do all the theory and read all the books you want, but until you sit down and write a screenplay or a
Yeah,
novel?
I guess so. Yeah, I started writing. It was something I did from such an early age that yeah, I'll still pick up in terms of screenplay format is so challenging, really, because it's very, very structured.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different from other things. It's much easier, honestly, to sit down and write a novel, not in the sense of how much time and effort it takes, but in terms of how much freedom you have. But with a screenplay, you have a lot less freedom. So I'll still go back and read those formal things to just, help put things in a structure that works for a movie, which is a very particular form of thing. But even as I'm doing that, I'll often be interested in something. I'll write out really quickly. I'll go, oh wow, this already fits a lot of the beats because I've been immersed in storytelling structure for 30 years. It becomes second nature. So
Right. With all that experience, like a lifetime of experience, what is your writing process? I mean, do you do like post-it notes on a corkboard? Do you go straight to your outline? Do you go straight to your first draft?
yeah, I really don't have a process. I do everything a little bit differently each time. So with the Tangle, I just talked it out with Jessica, who I think you're talking to tomorrow. She was the producer and an actress on it, um, and just had it in my head, and then I just wrote it out. But this was a very quick we decided we wanted to make a feature, and so I wrote this out very quickly, and went back and fixed things up. But I'm working on my next film is a meditation thriller, and I have a first draft of that. And I pretty much wrote it out. I had the plot points in my head. If you know screenplay structure, there's a few hit things you're supposed to hit as you're going through a structure. I'd have those in my head, and then I would write to those points. But I really do want the freedom of a scene to surprise me and a character to surprise me. So I'm maybe not as outliney as other people are in the screenplay world. I want to suddenly be like, oh my God, I didn't know that was going to happen.
Kind of that theory that the story's just revealing itself through you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really gives you can tell different. You can tell by it when you watch a movie which form people had, and when you watch the big budget movies, that's like a committee, so it's a little different. But when you watch an independent film, you can get a taste for who is very structured, like like Royal Tannenbaum's guy. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name now.
Oh, Wes Anderson.
Yeah, Wes Anderson, or there you can tell where something is. I had an idea and I wanted to structure it, and I put the characters inside of it, right? As opposed to I had some characters and a little bit of an idea, and I wanted to see where they went.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really different forms, and I try to do a little bit of both. I think I have both types of thinking are involved in me. I think I may be a little bit, as a thinker, more like I really want to structure this cool idea. So I try to give my characters more room to breathe. Otherwise, I think I might strangle them a little bit with my ideas.
That makes sense, and it's probably too early in development for you to talk about it a lot. But just the term meditation thriller is pretty great.
Cool, good, yeah. We could talk about it a little bit. I know I've just talked to a couple people about it in the last couple of weeks, and I don't really have a good pitch yet for it, but I'm excited about it.
Nice. We'll have to do this again when that one's a little closer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're acting now to start off just the next phase, I should say. I don't want to keep using the word career. So as an actor, you probably always had it in your head you wanted to get to creating your own.
Yeah, that was always assumed. As I said, I made my own feature really early in my acting career, and then I started making shorts all along the way. It's just sort of gone back and forth with those. I still love acting, and I love. It's definitely dried up a little bit, but that's pandemic related, I think.
Yeah.
I've mostly been, I don't know what will happen next, right? But I definitely am more focused right now on the creative side because that's what we've been doing. It's been a good time to write and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was definitely a period. I moved out to LA with an acting energy at first, and there was definitely maybe 2 years in when I was like, okay, I still want to do that, but I don't want to do the normal. I don't have the energy to just chase auditions. I'm going to make my own roles and make sure that whether someone offers me a role or not, I get to do something I'm excited about. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's cool to take control relatively early on that you got to make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, it was fortunate that I felt confident that I had those skills, and I just, I know a lot of actors, and it's a frustrating job. I remember I once looked at USA News and World Report. I think that's what it's called. They'll rank like all the jobs by like every year they'll like rank them, and they'll rank them by like quality of life. And I remember one year they ranked 200 jobs and actor was 200. And it's just because, all the things you think about, you're just waiting around for someone to give you a job. You have no job security. Even the jobs are often jobs you hate because you just have to take whatever job you can get. So having some control over it really improves the life quality.
Yeah, and the interview process, you basically have to do the job just to see if you got the job.
Yeah, yeah. And the interview process is weird. Very rarely is the audition process. I don't think the audition process is a very good method for finding the person who's best for the role a lot of the time. It's really different from the job you do on the set is honestly really different than the job you do in an audition. And that's weird. It's a weird part of the job of the career.
That's a good point. So when you're creating your movies, writing, directing, when you do the casting, do you go about it differently than what, someone like me on the outside would think is the traditional way?
I definitely would. But in most of my movies, I'm casting people I know. I'm writing with them in mind, and I haven't had a ton of money, so it's like this is a great actor who will come work with me, and who knows what he's getting into or she's getting into, and so I haven't had a chance to do a lot of extensive casting. That's not true. It's sort of a side job. I've worked with some big casting directors on some big things, and learned a lot about casting process in that example. And again, I was being a little bit flippant. There's a wide variety of ways that people cast, and some of them are much more accurate to the way that the things that make you a good actor than others. And I'm sort of talking about TV. TV is a little bit hard because they're casting so quickly and so fast. They're often casting on type. And it's a different kind of job. For me, what makes a great actor, honestly, one of the most important qualities is the ability to take direction, to do 20 different things. And that's just because of the kind of filmmaker I am. I'm willing to do 20 takes to see what we can get. Some filmmakers aren't like that. So you'd cast differently under those circumstances.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating thing about the line of work that you're in, is that there is no, this is how it's done.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned TV. Do you have TV experience as well?
I don't have a lot. I have a few little credits, but not very much. No, most of my stuff is in indie film and indie film. Yeah, I'm known for Ink and for Infinity Chamber as an actor, and I've been in a bunch of other stuff. But yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
and I guess TV probably. I can't imagine it's as accessible as like indie film. Like, there's no indie TV. Like, it's a totally different animal.
Yeah, I've done a fair amount of indie TV actually, but yeah, it's just it's more career oriented, right? And so you have to really make a choice that I'm going to go do this number of auditions, and I'm going to like take this number of co-star roles, which are like the very small roles, and then eventually get a guest star role. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's very career oriented, and so you have to really commit to that. And so, for instance, Josh, who stars in our film, he's really has a huge TV resume, and I've known him for a long time, so I've watched his career, and it's just accumulating roles and experience, and it's a great thing to do, but you have to really commit to it.
That makes sense too. It sounds like it's a lot of work, a lot of hitting the pavement and just putting yourself out there.
Yep, absolutely.
So from not switching from actor, because you were never just actor, but what was your first, whether it was a short or a feature directorial debut that kind of got you going? You're the first foundation block.
Yeah, so I did a whole bunch of things before this, but when I really was like, okay, I want to focus on this, was after Chasseur. It's a short film I made. I did really well on the festival circuit. It was what I said. It was when I said, I need to make my own stuff, and I just wrote a role that no one else would write for me, that I found exciting. And it was honestly at first more focused on the acting. It was a role written to be it was a script I wrote mainly so I could perform it. But as we, and in fact, I almost made it, and then I was like, it just didn't feel right with the way I'd cast it and the way I was going to shoot it. So I stopped production and then made it again. And then I redid it a few months later, and really put time and focus into the film part of it. And the film itself, I'm really proud of. It's a beautiful, it's a film. It really feels like what I was trying to accomplish, and it's something I hope to turn into either a feature or a TV show at some point. That was the first thing I would be willing to show people that I'm excited about. Yeah,
That's a good way to put it.
yeah. There's a lot of things before that. Yeah, but.
Nice. Okay. And are you finding that like this film that you made that you were really excited about, and you know probably the feeling of like, okay, I got one, this is good. Does that help you set up the next thing, or is it starting from scratch every time?
Actually, from that point on, each of the films have helped me set up the next thing, but it's all very idiosyncratic, and it's a lot of how Hollywood works in terms of connections and things. So that film definitely impressed some people. It impressed one of our producers for the Tangle, and he had a script he'd written, so he wanted me to direct that. So I directed that next. And then he and I collaborated on the third movie we did, which also did really well on the festival circuit. And then that movie helped us raise money for this feature. So they all sort of led one into the next.
Okay, that's cool. Do
Yeah.
you see these things lining up as you go, or do you kind of look back and be like, oh wow, look at that? It kind of
Just sort of as each one happened, you could see it going. I was like, okay, yeah, this one's leading to that one, and it wasn't a plan though, if that's what you mean. Yeah, no, not
yeah,
a plan.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how it's works out, even though it wasn't by
Right.
design, but it also
Right.
wasn't against design. It was just
Yeah, I think you have to be super flexible in this job. As we said right at the beginning, it's both the enjoyable, adventurous part of it and the anxiety producing part of it. Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm really interested to see as the Tangle comes out. I'm already working on the next one. I'm not counting on the Tangle to get me any connections or anything, but it's possible that somebody will see it that will make it easier for us to make our next stuff. So
All right. Well, we've mentioned the Tangle a few times now. I guess we should dive into that. Do
sure.
you want to talk about where the initial idea came from?
Sure. I mean, it's a sort of interesting. So actually, we had made those three shorts, and we were like, okay, and a short takes like 2 years to make if you want to make it right, and you're all by yourself. You know what I mean? And you don't have a
Mhm.
ton of money. So we were like, if we're going to spend that much effort and time, it's time to make a feature. We've gotten as far as we can with our shorts. So we had planned to make a feature. I wrote a whole script, which I still hope to make someday, with the intention of making it. But as I was finishing it and writing it, and I was starting to feel like it was getting too expensive. I had written it as to be low budget, but it was starting to feel like it was going to get too expensive. And so I switched gears because we wanted to make a feature that year, and I wrote the Tangle pretty quickly. And so I can't tell you where the initial idea came from because it just sort of popped out of my head. But in many ways, I've read science fiction since I was a preteen, and so it's just, and it's also linguistically, I've always been a sort of poetic writer. My mother was a poet. I've always been involved in poetry. So there was that part of it. Just so I just wrote something that was just right in my wheelhouse. Um, and that's how it happened, and I love Blade Runner and I love locked room mysteries. And so it just was, I wrote exactly what like excited me in the moment. It was an interesting process in that way. It just sort of flowed out.
Very cool. You
Yeah.
had mentioned a little bit before. Sometimes you have the concept of the idea and you put characters in it, and sometimes you have the characters and you build a concept around them. Which was it for the Tangle?
I have so little memory of how again, that process happened so quickly. I think it probably was a bit of both. I have no recollection, honestly, of what so there must have been. So I'm just trying to recreate it. You're trying to make a low budget movie, so you're like, okay, one location, maybe. How can I do that? One location. Now, the Tangle isn't one location, but a large portion of it does take place in one location. Um, and so I think the murder idea was there first, and then I went from there. But I would say that it's probably a little more idea than character in this one, just because it was a mystery. So the
Okay.
murder mystery set it up first. But yeah, a lot of the character revealed itself afterwards, I'm sure.
Without getting into spoilers, I
Yeah.
don't want you to give up anything in your mystery. When
Right.
you write a mystery, do you write the end first? You know where it all ends up, and then you reverse engineer it, or are you figuring it out along with your characters?
Yeah, and this one I'm pretty sure I knew how the murder happened pretty early on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
I
it's
think
always
I think
fascinating
it's
too.
pretty hard not to do that. Well, it just depends what kind of movie you want to make. But if you want to make a real murder mystery or locked room mystery, then you can't figure out afterwards because you need all the clues to be laid out in just the right way. You have to pretty much have that established from the beginning.
That does make a lot of sense because I guess if you kind of had just a vague idea in mind, you'd just be meandering along the path and eventually have to end it.
Yeah, and it just wouldn't the way it would be revealed to the audience wouldn't be timed right, right? The clues would come out in the wrong order or they would come out too early or too late. So you sort of need to go, okay, this is who did it and how they did it. And now I can't let the audience know that, right? But
Yeah,
I want to give them other ideas too. Yeah. So you have to sort of pretty much have to know what you're hiding from the
and you
beginning.
have to plant the seeds for that aha moment at the end.
That as well, right? Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Um, when you said this took a couple years, so you were definitely making it pre-COVID, which is lucky.
Oh yeah, this has been a long process. Yeah, been several years. Um, yeah, 4 or 5 years since we shot it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I was doing all the post work, and when you're just one person doing post, it's well, I shouldn't say I was doing all of it. There was great sound design and composer and color, but I did all the editing and obviously worked with all those people.
So your actual like in-person shoot with actors was 4 or 5 years ago?
Well, the first chunk. So that major location was shot, yeah, 5 years ago, whatever. But then there was the murder location, and that was shot maybe 6 months later. And then all the outdoor stuff was shot, and then the shooting itself took a couple of years, honestly.
Just to kind of piece it together.
Get all the pieces exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Did
And
you
again,
find that?
we were working with no money really. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you find that made it more challenging for continuity and things like that?
No, not really. Fortunately, because we shot all the stuff that took place in one place at one time. So
Oh, okay. So you didn't have to go back for
we never
pickups,
went
and
back to any of those locations. Yeah.
that was good planning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any idea of how many shoot days you might have had, or was it just so?
Well, in the main location, it was 10 days, and I think in the murder location, it was another 2 or 3 days. It's been a while now; I can't remember. So
Yeah.
that's very short, and that's 90% of the movie. But honestly, probably another 2 weeks or so of shooting for all that other stuff, which was just the other 10%. You know,
So that's a really tight timeline.
very compressed schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. So probably really long days and.
They were long days. They weren't as long as you might find on some indie shoots, and that was by design. You know, we set up the location so that it was more or less pre-lit. You know, if you see the opening in the movie, they're all around this table, and that takes up a lot of pages where they're talking there, and they're just lit by that light over the, you know, and it looks great. It's film noir to me. It looks great. It's, you know, it's kind of high contrast, but it's a very simple lighting setup. So things like that we could shoot a lot of dialogue really quickly. We we rehearsed it in much like a play in many ways, so that the actors could do long pages of dialogue all in one take. And so we set it up to be able to shoot a lot of pages very quickly in that location. Then, of course, when the action would happen or there would be more technical things, those days would take a lot longer. We do a lot fewer pages, but
All right. And
yeah.
as the writer director, I'm guessing you had a big hand in setting the shoot schedule, so you knew what you needed from each spot.
Yeah, and I was more or less the AD as well. So we scheduled it to, you know, me and the DP Robert Muratori, who's amazing. It really, he and I did all the scheduling in our head about how we would get this all done. Yeah.
Okay, it's just fascinating to me that you shot the bulk of your movie in 10 days. Like, it's just such a compressed timeline.
It really is, and all I can say is I'm very proud with how the film looks, and I don't think most people would think it was as, unless you made a film. I don't think people would think we had as little money as we had, or we had as little time as we had, and that really comes from years of being an actor and a director on really low budget things, and just learning how to do that. You know, how to make that work.
Yeah, had to stretch the budget and get things
Exactly.
done efficiently.
This and I was from the beginning of the writing I was writing the script with that in mind, going, okay, I'm writing a script that we can make this way.
That makes sense too. And I would have to imagine that you also editing the movie, you knew if you needed, like, say, a close up in between a wide shot or something like that.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the things I was most proud of myself when I got into the edit. I was like, wow, I really am not missing anything. Like I really had it in my head as we were going what I needed, and there was you very often are like, oh, I wish I've gotten that, and that just almost didn't happen at all. And that's a credit to Robert, but also just I've done it enough now that I know what how I'm cutting the scene together in my head. And we kept it relatively simple. It's dialogue. It's not like the most complex thing. There's some action as well, but for the most part, I was pretty happy with how well we covered each scene.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Did you have to do any sort of? Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it yet, but it's definitely on my list. I plan on getting to it. I try to always watch it before I talk to, especially the director, so I can go a little deeper.
No
But
worries.
was there any kind of like effects, whether practical or added in post, that you had a trouble with?
Yeah, there were. I have trouble with them. And everything in post felt like trouble, so I don't know how to say that. But no, yeah, it was a long process. I did some of the post effects myself. Um, a couple other people did some other post effects, so it was a mixture of just figuring things out on my own. And I will say, so yeah, if you haven't seen it, there's sort of some outdoor locations, and then there's the main location, and a lot of the outdoor location stuff really didn't follow the script. I just sort of, after we shot the main chunk, I was like, what can I go find that looks cool and will like tell this story? It didn't, and some of that story got rewritten after the fact because it was more about finding the location. And that's the same thing with some of the effects. It was, okay, what would be, oh, here I could this would be cool to shoot this and then do this effect that I could do and this effect that we could get done. And so that was just to add some of the flavor of it's a sci-fi world, but the premise is that our main characters are hidden from the advanced technology around them so that they can monitor it. And so they are in a world that doesn't have any of that advanced technology. In fact, it's like 50s technology in a lot of ways, or 70s technology. So a lot of the movie, you're not seeing this futuristic world out there. So we just wanted some flavors of the actual futuristic world to help create that reality.
That's very cool. And you gave me just enough to further pique my interest without giving anything away. So
okay, yeah. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I will say this to you. It's one of those movies, except for the murder, it's hard to give anything away. So I'm going to say one more thing. When you have a low budget movie, something I get disappointed. You go to film festivals, and I understand how hard it is to make a film, but a lot of people will they're like, I don't have very much money, but I want to make, and they'll try to make their version of a big budget movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have the money. So it's just like a low budget version of a big budget movie. And if you do it really well, then that's great, but it's really hard to do well because you're competing with something. So you have to figure out what you have that nobody else has. And so one thing I really focused on in writing the script was the language. And you'll notice the language is challenging. It's different. If you've seen a film like Brick, which is a sort of indie film, like that's another place where they turn the language a little bit. And it's just like to give it something that it doesn't cost any money, right? And it's something I knew I could do, right? There's a skill I had that not every writer would have. So I really focused on that. But it does make it requires you to lean in as a movie and really pay attention, which is not for everybody, but I think gives it a part of its unique flavor. And that's why I say a lot of people would prefer that I spoil it, so they can be sure they understand everything.
Yeah, tell them to rewatch it.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what softwares were you using for your editing and your post?
Yeah, the Adobe stuff.
Okay, Premiere, After Effects.
Premiere Pro, After Effects. Yep. Some effects were done by other people. I think that's what they were using, but I can't be sure of that actually. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure what they were using. But.
It's just so interesting how far the technology has come that it's so accessible to anybody that you can competently put something together.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. when that first feature I told you about that nobody's really seen, that was in 2003 or 4 or something, and I was using Premiere, or not, whatever it was called back then. No, I wasn't using Premiere. What's the other one? The one they all used to use on TV. I don't remember why I can't.
Avid.
Avid, yeah, I was using Avid, exactly. And it was a pretty steep learning curve. Yeah, back then. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I remember taking classes like late high school, early college, and editing, and it's a totally different world now. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I say it's like word processing. I think this happened, in the 20th century. My grandfather wrote a novel, and he showed me how he wrote it, and it was so hard. He had a typewriter, and to do edits, you would do, you'd either like erase it and then tape in like the thing you wanted to rewrite, or you'd write notes all in paper, and it was super hard. And then we had an explosion of amazing novels in the late 20th century, and it was partly because everyone got a word processor, and suddenly it was a lot easier to put together that big of a project. And I really think the same thing is happening now in film, or has been over the last 10 years. The art is becoming more available. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good, I guess it would be an analogy, comparing it to the writing by hand to typewriters, then to word processors. And now we have, you see things where they like, oh, this commercial shot on an iPhone. Like,
Right,
it's
exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, even something like TikTok now is giving people like fun little edit. When you first got into editing, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to make this person disappear or whatever. TikTok is like, just those little tricks are just there for everybody, every
Yeah.
7-year-old is doing it. So everyone's an editor now. And it's harder, trust me, it's still harder to edit a feature film, just like it's still hard to write a novel. It takes a lot of effort and time, but it's available. If you want to put the work in, you can do it.
Yeah, you're not held back by hardware.
Yeah, exactly. Or expense even, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because even the Adobe stuff, which for software is on the more expensive side, you can do a month to month if you had to. And
Yep.
very cool. I don't want to eat up your whole day. The movie sounds fascinating. I definitely have to get on it.
Yeah.
But it comes out March 19th. Do you want to talk about the release?
So it comes out this Friday, and on Amazon will be, it might come out later somewhere other places, but ideally we get people to watch it on Amazon this Friday, and write a review if you watch it, if you like it. And it's the first weekend's kind of important for low budget films like this on Amazon. If it gets a little bit of attention, then Amazon will be more likely to bump it up in people's queue and so on. So yeah, hopefully people come check it out. If you like smart science fiction, it's definitely an intelligent science. It's about ideas, and it's a film noir kind of style. So if you're into kind of stylized, smart science fiction, it might be something up your alley.
Very cool. And do you want to share your socials, or maybe the website for the movie, whatever else you want to plug?
Sure. I'm very bad at this part of it. Jessica will be better at this. It's called The Tangle. So it's on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. I'm Christopher Soren Kelly, so you can find me on all of those things as well. And another thing I haven't mentioned, I don't know if anyone's, Nicole da Silva is in the film, and she's big star in Australia, well known for a show called Wentworth, which a lot of people may have seen. So you can follow her on Instagram as well, and she's got quite a few followers. And if you're a fan of hers, you might want to check out the film.
Great. Well, thanks again for taking the time, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Yeah, and hopefully we'll talk again.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Christopher Soren Kelly one more time for coming on the show to talk to me about his new movie, The Tangle, available now on VOD. I highly recommend it. I have another interview about this movie coming up, and of course, my own personal review of the movie, but I'd love getting the interviews out first. Check out The Tangle, come back for more interviews. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you do not miss out. Also, make sure to listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week, wherever you get your podcasts. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows for it. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, merchandise, and more. We also love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments, leave us something on social media. All of our accounts will be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I released a comic earlier this year, Social Studies. It's a comic that takes a comedic look at the high school experience done through the twisted prism of the 90s cartoons we grew up on. Again, the comic is called Social Studies. You can find it at socialstudiescomic.com. We're all over social media. I'd appreciate it if you took a minute to check it out. Thanks.